The sun hung heavy over the Valley of Kings, its golden light stretching across the endless savanna. Yet there was no warmth left in this land. Where once great prides had ruled, there was now only silence, the kind that follows devastation. Kiro stood at the edge of a crumbling plateau, his white fur bathed in the dying light. His piercing eyes scanned the ruins below, scattered bones, remnants of a kingdom that had dared to defy him. He had seen many prides fall, but today was different. This was the last one. He turned, facing the surviving lions who cowered before him. Their king, a proud but battered lion, lifted his head, refusing to bow. Kiros sneered. "Not anymore," he declared, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "While you rule, this tribe has built my army. Yours is the last pride in the Valley of Kings, which means everything the light touches belongs to me. There will be one ruler, one Lion King." Then, with a swift motion, he struck. His claws tore through flesh and the king collapsed, the last barrier between Kiros and absolute power broken. The Valley of Kings was his. For years, Kiros had ruled with an iron paw, his reign carved into the bones of fallen kings and the blood-soaked earth of the Valley of Kings. He was a force of nature, ruthless, unrelenting, and insatiable in his hunger for power. His pride, the outsiders, were more than just followers. They were his army, a pack of spectral white lionesses who struck terror into the hearts of any who stood against them. They were the last remnants of ancient royalty, exiled and scorned, and under Kiros's rule, they had become something far worse, predators without mercy. Their conquest was a fire that consumed the land, leaving nothing but ashes where great kingdoms once stood. Prides fell, their leaders slain, their cubs stolen or slaughtered. Kings who once roared with strength found their voices silenced beneath Kiros's claws. It was said that he did not simply kill rulers, he erased their very legacies, ensuring that no heir remained to reclaim what was lost. And yet, amidst all this carnage, one land remained untouched. Unlike the others, the Pridelands stood as a beacon of peace and prosperity. It was a kingdom bathed in golden light, where the balance of nature was upheld under the steady rule of King Ahadi. The land flourished beneath his leadership, the rivers ran full, the herds thrived, and the lions of Priderock lived without fear of invasion. But Kiros did not concern himself with the Pridelands. Not yet, to him. Ahadi was a relic of an old world, an aging king clinging to ideals that had long since lost their power. His sons, Mufasa and Taka, were nothing more than cubs, children playing at royalty. They were of no threat to him, no more than leaves trembling before the coming storm. And so, for years, Kiros turned his gaze elsewhere, focusing on conquest, letting the Pridelands remain untouched, until the day his son Shaju was taken from him. Shaju was more than just an heir to Kiros. He was the future, the living embodiment of his bloodline, a cub raised to inherit the empire his father had built. He was trained in the ways of war before he could even hunt, learning the tactics of battle and the cold ruthlessness of his father's reign. Kiros had no love for weakness, and Shaju had shown none. Until the day he did not return. It was a hunt like any other. Shaju, reckless and eager to prove himself, had wandered too far from the safety of the Outlands. When he was found, his body was broken, his life stolen before it had even truly begun. And in that moment, something inside Kiro shattered. His grief did not come in the form of sorrow or mourning. There were no wails of despair, no whispered prayers for the cub he had lost. Instead, his grief manifested as fury, an inferno that would set the Pridelands ablaze. No one knew who had struck the fatal blow, but Kiros did not care for truth. He needed someone to blame, and his hatred found a name: Mufasa, the Golden Prince, the heir to Ahadi's throne, the lion cub that had everything his son never would. A future. It did not matter whether Mufasa had been the one to kill Shaju. Logic did not matter, only vengeance. That night, as the outsiders gathered beneath the pale moonlight, Kiros' voice echoed across the valley, sealing the Pridelands' fate with a single vow: blood for blood. The Pridelands had flourished for generations, but that peace had bred complacency. Ahadi had long believed that the strength of his pride, the laws of the circle of life, and the balance of nature itself would shield them from the darkness beyond their borders. But Kiros had no respect for balance, only dominance. The night after Shaju's death, Kiros stood upon the highest rock in the Outlands, his piercing blue eyes scanning the dark horizon. Behind him, his pride of white lionesses gathered, their eyes gleaming with the same bloodlust that burned within their king. "Mufasa will pay," Kiros growled, his voice low, seething with fury. But not just him. His father, his brother, his pride. They will all suffer. The Pridelands will know what it means to defy me. A chilling silence followed. Then, from the gathered lions, a single voice broke through. What of Scar? Taka Ahadi's second born, the cub who lived in his brother's shadow, the one who had never been meant to rule. Kiros sneered. Taka is insignificant. He was never meant to wear a crown. He turned his gaze back to the distant lands. But perhaps that can change. Kiros was no fool. He had watched from afar, seeing the way Taka's jealousy festered in the shade of his brother's greatness. If there was a weakness in the Pridelands, it was not their strength, it was their heart, and Kiros would exploit it. In the days that followed, the Pridelands remained unaware of the storm brewing at their borders. Mufasa and Taka continued their training under Ahadi's watchful eye, the elder brother standing strong and proud, the younger always trailing behind, yearning to prove himself. It was on one of these days that Taka, wandering alone near the Outlands, found himself face to face with Kiros. The white lion stood at the edge of the border, his towering frame casting a long shadow over the golden grass. His eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto the young prince. "You are the second born." His voice was smooth, almost kind. "You do not walk with your brother." Taka stiffened, his ears flattening. "Ugh, he doesn't need me." Kiros chuckled, the sound deep and knowing. "No, he doesn't." He took a step forward, though he did not cross the border. "But your father, he does. And when Mufasa takes the throne, what will become of you?" Taka hesitated. He had heard the whispers before, the lessons drilled into him since birth. Mufasa is the heir. You are his brother. The words had always stung, but never before had they felt like a death sentence. Kiro saw the doubt in his eyes. "Good. There is a fire in you," Kiro said softly. "A hunger. I can see it." He leaned closer. "Tell me, Taka, how long will you let them treat you as an afterthought?" Taka wanted to turn away. He wanted to deny the words, to claim he did not care. But he could not, because deep down, in the darkest part of his heart, he knew Kiros was right. Before he could respond, a distant roar split the air. Mufasa. Taka's body tensed. Kiros smiled. "Run along, little prince." His voice was a whisper now, a promise carried on the wind. "But remember my words." And just like that, he was gone, slipping into the shadows of the Outlands as if he had never been there at all. But his words remained, festering in Taka's mind. And with them, the first cracks in the Pridelands had begun to form. The attack did not come immediately. Kiros was patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. He let his whispers take root in Taka's heart, let the young prince's jealousy fester. Then, on the night of the full moon, the outsiders struck. They came like ghosts, moving silently through the tall grass, their white pelts blending with the moonlight. By the time the sentries noticed them, it was already too late. The first screams shattered the night. Kiros led the charge, his massive frame a blur of pale fur and razor-sharp claws. His lionesses followed, their teeth flashing as they tore through the unsuspecting Pride. The Pridelands had never known war like this. Ahadi's roar echoed across the plains as he leaped into battle, fighting with the strength of a true king. Mufasa, though young, stood beside him, his golden mane still growing, but his heart already fierce. And Taka stood frozen. He had wanted this, hadn't he? He had wanted them to see him as more than a shadow. But now, as blood soaked the grass and his father and brother fought for their lives, a terrible realization settled over him. Kiros didn't care about him. He never had. This wasn't about making Taka a king. This was about destroying everything. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity. Kiros and Ati clashed in a storm of claws and roars, two kings locked in a brutal struggle. Mufasa fought with all his might, standing strong even as the outsiders threatened to overwhelm them. And then, amidst the chaos, Kiros saw his opening. Mufasa's back was turned, his guard was down. Now, Kiros lunged, his claws aiming for the Golden Prince's throat. But then, a blur of dark fur. Taka! The younger prince leaped between them, his small body shielding his brother. Kiros's claws raked across his face instead, slicing deep into his left eye. Taka collapsed with a cry of agony. Mufasa turned just in time to see his brother fall, his eyes widening in horror. Taka! For a moment, Kiro simply stared at the fallen prince, blood dripping from his claws. Then a cruel smile curled his lips. I didn't kill him. His voice was almost amused, taunting. You did. And with that, he vanished into the darkness, his lionesses retreating with him. The Pridelands had survived, but the cost had been great. Taka's injury was not just physical. His soul had been wounded that night. He had tried to save his brother, but in the end, all he had gained was a scar, and the name that would haunt him forever. Scar. As he lay in the darkness, the pain of his wound burning, Scar thought of Kiros's words. You are the second born. You do not walk with your brother. And in that moment, he understood he had saved Mufasa's life, but one day he would take it. The battle was over, but the scars remained, etched not only on Scar's face, but deep within his heart. Kiros had vanished into the shadows, but his influence lingered, like a venom slowly poisoning the Pridelands. Mufasa would go on to rule with strength and wisdom, carrying the weight of his father's legacy. Scar, once just a jealous brother, had now been reshaped by pain, betrayal, and a whispering darkness that would one day consume him. But this was only the beginning. The seeds of destiny had been sown. The tale of the Pridelands was far from over. Will vengeance call Scar once more? Will Kiros return to finish what he started? Or is there another untold secret lurking in the shadows of the past? Let us know in the comments what story you'd love to see next. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of the Untold Lion King saga. Join the Pride and be part of the journey. The story is far from over, and you can help shape what comes next.